I'm going to go over the process for creating a very basic rig using joints only. Um, and the next video will be about how to bring it into Unity if you are using that. So I've created this little flying bug thing. It's like a little sphere with wings. And the first thing we want to do before we start rigging is to clean up the channel box. So you want to freeze the transformations. You'll notice that it zeroes everything out, sets the scale to 1, and we want to delete the history. So it gets rid of everything here. Now I'm going to open up my outliner, which is under Windows Outliner, and I'm going to just dock it on the side. Now, when you place joints, when you use the joint tool, so we're going to switch to the rigging menus. The joint tool wants to place joints on the grid. And so because this is centered on this axis, I can actually switch to my front view and place a joint right in the center. Turn on X-ray joints so we can see it. I can place it right in the center and it'll be centered here because it placed it on that grid that was showing the y-axis. So I know that it's centered right in the middle. If I'm not sure about centering, I can actually snap to the grid by holding down the X key when I'm in the Move tool. And you'll notice how it kind of snaps. So I can drag on the individual axes and I can make sure that it's centered right in the middle like I want it. Once I place my middle joint, this is the center of gravity joint, the anchor joint of the body. It'll determine the position of the entire rig. I can actually hit enter to exit out of the joint tool and then duplicate this. So now I have two joints but that are separate from each other. I can position the articulation joints of the rig where they need to go. So I can place one on that side, duplicate it, and place one on the other side. So I place these articulation joints at the point of my mesh where I want things to be able to bend. And right now, so these are the wings, so I want the wings to be able to flap right here at the shoulders. Okay. So these two joints, these shoulder joints, are going to be following the anchor joint. So I can select both of them and then select the anchor joint and hit P. And you'll notice I've created a hierarchy here where the two wing joints are parented underneath the anchor joint. So this is the really simple skeleton hierarchy that we'll be using. And the next step is to connect it to the mesh. So we need to select our anchor joint, the parent joint of the entire joint hierarchy, and then also select our mesh. And we'll go under Skin, Bind Skin Options. Make sure to reset your settings. Now, there's a couple things we can do here. So we only have 3 joints, but it allows for a max influence of 5. So I could actually turn this down to 2, and that might make our skinning work a little bit easier. So this max influences is the number of influences a vertice in the mesh can have, number of joint influences. So let's try binding the skin. Now we can just do a really quick test. So we can kind of come in here and rotate our joints. And that's not totally looking like what we want. This joint should only be controlling the wing, but it's affecting the body. And probably the same with the other side. Yeah. So what we need to do after we've skinned our mesh is to go into the Paint Skin Weights tool. And this shows us the joints that are connected to our mesh and which vertices they have influence over. So I can click on my joint to see which areas of the mesh it's influencing. And the influence goes from 0 to 1 following this color ramp gradient. So like 0.1 is blue, around 0.5 is like a green color, 0.9 is red, and 1 is white. So using the paint tool in the add mode, I can come in here and paint influence. So you always want to think about it as adding influence to a joint instead of taking it away from another joint. So if I look here, I'm like, well, this wing is controlling the body, so I want to take away this influence. Well, instead of thinking about it that way, think about it as you want to fully add influence from the body joint in the area that it's supposed to be. So you're trying to fill in influence instead of take it away. So I'm going to use my paintbrush tool here. Remember, I'm in the add mode, and the value down here, that's the amount that I'm adding every time I click. So I'll just do some quick clicking. I can change the size of my brush by holding down the B key and dragging my mouse from side to side. So B is in brush. And once I get all of the vertices that are not directly connected to my wings, now what you'll see if I go over to my joint for the wing, it's not affecting the body of our little bug anymore. So I've filled in the influence over here in order to take it away from this side. Now I want joint 2 to be fully controlling the wing over here. So I'm going to paint in the influence on this side. Make sure you look all the way around. And I'm kind of purposefully leaving these shared vertices. So they're at the base of the wing, but they're also part of the body. So I'm leaving it at this green color, which is about 50%. And so that the influence is shared between the body and the wing at that point. And so I'm just going to go over to the other side, do some painting. So I'm just going to fill in the influence of this joint onto the wing. You'll notice that when I have a joint selected, the joint in the window is highlighted blue so I can tell which one I'm working with. Paint. And that looks pretty good. So I'm going to hit Q to go back to my selection tool, exit out of the paint tool, and I'm going to go back and test my wings. And that looks much better. So I can flap my little wings without them messing up the body. And so I would consider this to be done. We'll test the other side just in case. I think that looks good. And we can grab that middle joint and we can move it around